In this lesson, we're going to talk about how to use a graph to determine intercepts. So we'll talk about what an intercept is and how you can recognize it on the graphs. Really very easy. So intercepts are simply where a graph crosses the x or y axis. So wherever that happens, you're going to get a coordinate point, an x comma y. But because you're on an axis, whenever you're on the x-axis, the y-coordinate will always be 0. And whenever you cross the y-axis, the x-coordinate will always be 0. So we usually just state the coordinate for the relevant axis, that is the one that we're worried about, instead of the whole xy point. In other words, we usually just leave off the part that's 0 because if you're talking about an intercept, you know one of these numbers is 0. So, let's look at this parabola and determine the x and y intercepts. Now this is the x-axis. So these 2 points here and here are called x-intercepts because those are where the graph crosses the x-axis. And this point down here is the y-intercept because this is where the graph crosses the y-axis. So each of these has a point, and so let's talk about x-intercepts first. There is a point here, -3, 0, that is the x-intercept, but we're just going to say -3. And there is another point here, 4, 0, that is the other x-intercept, but we're just going to say 4. Now, no fair trying to make these both be 1 point. No fair putting -3, 4, because -3, 4 would be up here somewhere. That's a totally different thing. These are 2 different points. -3, 0 and 4, 0. But the reason we have left off the 0 parts is because if it's an intercept, we know that the y part is 0 for the x-intercept. Alright, now the y-intercept is at -6. So yes, we know that this is 0, -6, but because we're talking about an intercept, there's really no need to say 0, -6. We know that it's just, if it's an intercept, it's on the y-axis and it's at -6. Okay, so when we're talking about an x-intercept, we know that the numbers that are given here are x values, and we're talking about a y-intercept, we know that the number given here is a y value. And here's another one. This is a line. Determine the x and y intercepts for this graph. Well, I have an x-intercept at 3 and a y-intercept at 6. Period. End of discussion. Do not make this difficult or into something that it's not. It's really very simple. One more. This is an absolute value graph. I have 2 x-intercepts and 1 y-intercept. The 2 x-intercepts are at -3 and +1. The y-intercept is at -2. And that's all it is.